Hello, everyone, and welcome to Post Wrestling's review of New Japan Showdown, emanating from San Jose, California, on November 9th, 2019. So I'm in Japan. I'm WH Park, of course, and so this is November 10th as I record this, and I watched this on November 10th, but it's still Saturday night in San Jose, so that's why there's this time differentiation. And joining me today, and I'm going to be reviewing this show with someone who's in the same time zone as me, and who's someone I've talked to before on the Cruel Summer G1 Climax series. He is from Australia, Davis Storm. Davis, how are you today?
I'm very good, thank you, WH. How are you?
I'm good. It's a lovely Sunday afternoon here in Japan. Weather is nice. It's not too cold. It's not too warm. It's beautiful autumn weather. How's Australia?
Very much the same. We had a 37 degrees Celsius day here yesterday, and I think we're probably sitting in the low 30s today. A little bit overcast, but beautiful Perth day. The weather's always pretty good here in Perth. I can't complain.
37 degrees. I just endured 37 degree weather a couple of months ago. It was a long summer in Japan, like a very hot and humid summer. I'm always happy when the fall season rolls around, and I don't feel like I need to take 4 showers in one day. So, is it humid in Perth?
Generally, it's not. We do get some humid days from time to time, but generally it's more of a dry heat here in Western Australia in particular. We've got a lot of desert out here. Obviously, the city's nothing like that, but it's mostly dry heat with a few humid days sort of scattered here and there.
All right. Well, like I said, you were a guest on Cruel Summer, and you're going to be an upcoming guest on Thunderstruck, the Jushin Thunder Liger review series. But for those of you who might not be familiar with you, Davis, give us a little bit of background on who you are. You are a professional wrestler in Australia.
I am indeed. I have wrestled here in Perth, Western Australia for the past 18 years, and a little bit of travel, trained with some people over there at the LA Dojo. This is the original LA Dojo, not the one that's in existence now, the old Inoki Dojo. Spent a little bit of time over there with my compatriots Hartley Jackson, who was a NXT coach not that long ago, and my good friend Mikey Nichols. And also the class that we were training with there featured guys like TJ Perkins, Fergal Devitt, Carl Anderson, and our coach at that time was none other than Kendo Kashin. So, sorry, Rocky Romero was both coaching and training with us at the same time. So, a pretty cool class to be a part of, and been able to maintain relationships with those guys over the years. So, getting to review this show in particular and seeing Rocky and TJ get to perform at home in California was pretty cool.
Yeah, that sounds. I was watching the show and I think, oh, there's TJ Perkins, there's Rocky. Oh, Davis trained with them when he was in the LA Dojo, the original LA Dojo that was run by the Inoki office back in the early 2000s. So maybe we'll get some deep insight about these gentlemen from you during the course of our review. And we're going to talk a bit about Australian wrestling after this review. And you had a big show. EPW had their 18th anniversary show yesterday, was it not?
Yeah, that's right. 18 years. It doesn't seem like it's been that long, but the years have just disappeared quickly.
Yeah, well, we'll talk more about the happenings of that show, including your own tag match that you had with your partner Black Richter against the amazing team. I'm a big fan of these guys, Damian Slater and Marcus Pitt, the Untouchables. We'll talk more about that, and maybe about the general Australian wrestling scene after the review of this show. And so, yeah, we are talking about Showdown, New Japan Pro Wrestling's San Jose show, part of their American expansion. It's headlined by an amazing tag match that featured the IWGP Heavyweight Champion and the IWGP Junior Heavyweight Champion, Kazuchika Okada and Will Ospreay, respectively, taking on the challengers for the heavyweight title, Kota Ibushi, and his partner, American independent wrestling sensation and legend, Amazing Red. And before we get to the review itself, were you ever familiar with Amazing Red? Had you ever crossed paths with this man?
No, so I've never actually met him. I know he's good friends with Robbie Eagles. Robbie spent some time at House of Glory, so he's very familiar with Red, and obviously I'm quite familiar with Robbie. So, no, haven't had the chance to meet him, although, he was starting to break out at a time when I was trying to break into wrestling. So there was a lot of amazing Red matches, both watched and ripped off on this side of the globe in the early 2000s. So he's been a huge influence on people over here. And I think that speaks to the wider wrestling community as well, that he's had a really big influence on the independent wrestling scene.
Yeah, it's kind of nice to see this kind of renaissance that he's been having. I think a lot of it has to do with the influence of like Will Ospreay, who, when like Red kind of announced his retirement, he said, Ospreay said, hey, I want to wrestle you. Let's try to make something happen. And we'll talk more about that as we get to the main event. But this show emanates from I believe the San Jose Civic Center. And one note I want to make about this venue, Davis, I don't know if you will get this reference, but I tweeted out that this show, the way it was lit, the way it was shot, it really reminded me of watching like old Maple Leaf Gardens WWF house shows on, Canadian broadcasts of WWF wrestling. And it was just like, wow, it just had this really old school feel to it, the whole building and the way the crowd was lit and everything.
Sure. I don't get the reference specifically, but I actually thought that the show looked very professional. The stage and the entranceway was probably a more simple one, but I thought the venue was really well lit. It looked grander than your average house show, but obviously wasn't a full-scale production. I thought it looked fantastic.
I always think having a balcony really adds to the look of a venue on TV.
Yeah, absolutely. It does make it feel grander. It didn't look like that floor section was enormous, but still it looked like a great crowd in there. And yeah, the balcony, so long as there's no wrestlers diving off that thing, then I'm all for balconies in professional wrestling.
Maybe Kota Ibushi didn't think he'd get to the stairs quick enough to pull off the dive there, but we're getting ahead of ourselves. Let's talk about this show from the beginning. Our first match is Ren Narita, recently moved over to the LA dojo, transferring from the New Japan dojo, and he took on his fellow dojo mate Alex Coughlin. And our commentators are Kevin Kelly and Tiger Tori. And yes, I listened to the English commentary for this review because I thought, well, Davis is probably going to listen to the English commentary. We should be on the same page for the pearls of wisdom that come out of not only like Kevin Kelly and Tiger Tori, but later on Rocky Romero. And I think, like I said, the arena, it kind of reminds me of old like Maple Leaf Wrestling on CHCH. All the old school Toronto fans will know what I'm talking about when I make that reference, but it also kind of reminds me a bit of a Japanese venue as well. Like I said, the balcony adds to it. Like I much prefer a venue with a balcony, like on TV, as opposed to just a flat floor. Yeah,
absolutely.
Narita comes out. I call him Ring Conf Ren Narita because he has those striped socks that you will see like Walter wear and other members of Ring Conf. He looks like the ref. They have this new ref. I think he's training in their dojo maybe, or he's a local SoCal ref. Alex Chang. He kind of looks like he's in high school. He looked very, very young, Davis.
There seem to be a couple of new refs or refs that I had not seen before, and I wonder if this is part of the American expansion plans, that they're just starting to get a few refs over there that they're familiar with.
I think it's a good idea, like trying to bring the support staff over for these kind of rather ambitious sounding tours. Sounds like kind of a headache for the refs, and also like an expense you don't need if you're going to have, refs on regular shows. Just hire some local guys, and then they can just be guides as well for the visiting wrestlers. Where am I here? Yeah, so his name's Alex Chang. Let me ask you a question though, before we get to the match, about refs. When you meet a guy fresh out of like wrestling school who's trained as a referee, do you feel like you have to have a conversation with that ref before your match, like to make sure they know what to look for in your matches and stuff?
Yeah, even with experienced refs, I still do the same. And I think as refs gain more experience, they probably come to you rather than waiting for you to go to them. But it's definitely something that you want to be clear with, particularly if there's specific things that they need to look out for. But if you're just talking about the basics, then there probably doesn't need to be a conversation. It's really only if you're going to, and this is something I'm sure we'll talk about during this show, if you're going to put the referee in compromising positions, you probably need to you need to discuss that with them.
Well, that's something, Shaw Samuels and Josh Bodum should be listening to and taking into account. Maybe Shaw Samuels definitely in the future. Let's see. So it's basically, this match starts out as your typical Young Alliance match. Each guy is jockeying for position. Coughlin really escalates things. He slaps Red Narita right in the mouth. A really hard slap. Red Narita's not taking any of that shit from him, and he fires back with his own series of strikes and chops. Narita hits this beautiful release belly to belly in the middle match, but not his bridging one, which is his current finisher. Coughlin comes back with a double arm suplex, and then he hits this beautiful Karelin lift, and everyone calls it like a gut wrench. I like using the proper term, the Karelin lift, Davis.
Yep. That was huge. He tossed him half the way across the ring, and as you know, the New Japan ring is not the small independent style 18-foot ring. This is a full 20-foot ring by the looks of it, and he just launched him across the ring.
Other highlights include this beautiful dropkick from Ren Narita, and I just think he has such a graceful looking dropkick. He really reminds me of a young Shinjiro Otani. I don't know if you feel that way about Narita.
To be honest, I've not seen a huge amount of his work. This is probably only the second or third time that I've seen him, but yeah, I can definitely see what you're getting at.
The finish comes with the belly-to-belly suplex with his bridge for the 1-2-3, and Ren Narita takes this match. Let me see what the time on this was. Let me go to the New Japan site. Hold on, results. I think I lost this page and I have to get it back. Hold on a sec. They went 7 minutes and 43 seconds, and this is going to be a kind of a theme throughout the show, and we don't really have very long matches on this show.
No, it just seemed like a bit of a showcase for everyone on the show, and I thought these guys both showed really excellent fundamentals. I really enjoyed the grappling exchanges at the beginning, and one of the things that Kevin Kelly was putting over on the commentary was that the guys trained in the LA dojo, that Shibata expects them to show a certain amount of intensity and fire. And I thought that was something that played into the match. Coughlin had a lot of intensity. That slap was something that really stood out to me, that he was really trying to show some fire and show some intensity. And I thought both guys came off looking fantastic, and that holding belly to belly is just a beautiful thing.
Yeah, what do you think for Narita? I mean, you say you haven't seen that much of him, but I'm figuring they're gonna start him off after his excursion, probably in the junior heavyweights, but eventually have him bulk up and move towards a heavyweight, into the heavyweight division. Kind of similar to maybe what Otani did himself, or with Hirooki Goto, because Hirooki Goto, believe it or not, he was a junior heavyweight at one point before he moved into the heavyweight division. What do you think, Davis?
It was hard for me to get a sense of how big Narita actually was, because the LA dojo guys are jacked. So it was hard to really get an appreciation for how big he actually is. So, I mean, from his actual wrestling perspective, I think he's got all the potential in the world. From a size perspective, whether he fills out to be a heavyweight or not, is still to be seen, I guess.
Yeah, we'll see. I'm thinking, first junior heavyweight division, couple of years there, and then move into the heavyweight division proper. I think he can become a big star in both. So we'll see what happens with him. Our second match is a very special match. It's Jushin Thunder Liger's last United States match ever, and I felt this was a really strange match to put. So he's teaming with Aaron Solo, independent American wrestler, who's also done some training in New Zealand with in the Fale dojo with Tony Kozina, I assume, and Bad Luck Fale. That's his kind of pipeline into New Japan, and they're taking on the comedy tag team of Toru Yano and Colt Cabana, which I just thought, why is this Liger's last match? Why isn't it a singles match?
It was a really odd. I find Yano and Cabana already to be quite the odd pairing, and then to have them wrestle in Liger's last match was a very interesting choice. In execution, I thought the match was actually quite entertaining. But just looking at the match on paper, it did seem like an odd pairing.
I think there's a number of people you could have just, slot it in there with Liger as his last United States match. And I just thought, well, he's facing two heavyweights with a heavyweight as his partner in a kind of, I'm sorry, like, it was entertaining. I will grant you that, but it just felt like from a significance point of view, like, what was the point of this? Like, it just seems like a waste of his retirement. I just feel like recently, the way he's been booked outside of the Suzuki match, the build up for the Suzuki match was great. And I'm kind of mixed feelings about the actual match because, like, he busted out Battle Liger and kind of like his shoot fighter gimmick against Suzuki, but it wasn't really a feud that was built towards a shoot fight. It's more like kind of like a blood match that should have ended the feud between those two. But outside of that, I really feel it's a lackluster retirement tour for him. And I kind of made the comment that, if I had EWR, which is like the wrestling promotion simulation game, if I had that, I could probably book, a better retirement tour for Liger than what New Japan has been doing so far.
I mean, the one thing we don't have any insight to is what exactly Liger himself wants to do. And, I think all of us have our dream scenario as big fans of Liger. We all have our own dream scenario of how the end of his career would play out. But I mean, the one thing we have no idea about is what the man himself actually thinks. And maybe just fun tag matches is where he wants to place himself at this point. He's been at it for a long period of time. And despite the fact that he doesn't look like he's slowing down all that much in the ring, maybe he is starting to, and the body is starting to pay a little more for the choices that he makes. So
maybe we'll see the last hurrah on January 5th, his last, scheduled match of anything. It's going to be a singles match. It's going to be against a big opponent, I feel. So maybe he's just saving his body up for that. So maybe it's understandable the way he's been booked so far. So we get, like Liger comes out last. He gets this big response from the crowd. They know the significance of his appearance on this card. They start a big Liger call. They're showing a lot of love for the man. The match starts with Liger and Yano, and Yano just walks up to him. He wants a handshake from Liger, and he starts yelling. Liger's very apprehensive, of course, because it's the dastardly Toru Yano, but he starts yelling, Yano starts yelling at him, I respect! So, and then the crowd starts chanting, respect! They want Liger to shake Yano's earnest attempts at a handshake, and, of course, he shakes his hand, and of course Yano immediately, double crosses him and tries to roll him up for 3 count, but thankfully, thank God, he only gets a 2 count on Liger here, Davis.
I thought this was fantastic and a great way to start the match. I thought it set a really fun tone for the match, and I thought that lasted for the majority of the match too.
Oh, definitely. So from here, Yano immediately goes for the turnbuckle pad. He unties it. He tries to hit Liger with it, but, Liger is able to avoid all that stuff, and he gets a hold of the pad, and then he hits Yano with it to a massive pop from the crowd. And other highlights from this match, we see kind of an apron rolling plancha. So basically, Liger does this somersault plancha off of the apron onto Yano, who's on the floor. We see Solo and Cabana start interacting in the ring. Cabana's doing his his Cabana stuff. Like, he does all the chain wrestling. He does the dusty punches. He goes for the bionic elbow, but that's avoided. The crowd definitely familiar with Colt Cabana. They start chanting for his name, but Aaron Solo, funnily enough, he's from the Bay Area, and he says, "Hey, I'm from here. What about me?" I thought Cabana looked really sharp here, and I think he's a guy who, in those early when the independent scene was really having its first real breakout, that he was one of the guys who would regularly get mentioned alongside the Punks and the Reds and the Samoa Joes, and that over time his name has sort of taken a little bit of a backward step, I suppose, as the new generation of guys like the Bucks have come through and stolen the attention away. But he's been at it for a very long time, and he's an incredibly polished act. He really does what he does incredibly well. Yeah, I mean, there is a place for, your Colt Cabanas in wrestling. I feel like, outside of the comedy stuff, which he's very good at. Like when he wants to be a serious wrestler, he's actually a very good serious wrestler because these technical skills are so on such a high level because of all the training he's done all over the world. So yeah, I mean, if you put him in New Japan proper, I think he's definitely going to be a big part of the American expansion. I don't think like his relationship with Ring of Honor or the NWA is going to get in the way of that. I think it's a good thing because he is such a beloved figure on the American independent wrestling scene. From here, we see Yano interacting with Solo, and he sends Solo into the exposed turnbuckle. Staple of a lot of Yano's matches. Liger hits shotes to both Yano and Cabana throughout the match. He sends Yano to the exposed turnbuckle himself. Yano sells it very well. What's good for the goose is good for the gander, as they say. There's a spinning head scissors from Solo. Cabana does his, like I said, he does his dusty punches, but Solo hits an enziguri to block the dusty bionic elbow. And then we just move into the finish, which I thought was, to be fair, to be honest with you, it's really stupid finish. So Cabana pins Solo. I don't understand because shouldn't Liger pin either Cabana or, Yano in this match? I would have him pin Yano. Like, what is it about either Cabana or Yano right now at this given time that precludes Jushin Thunder Liger in his last United States match to not pin either of these guys?
I mean, my notes say, I guess Cabana and Yano go over because they're teaming in the World Tag League, but come on. I thought the finish for this was so obvious. Liger just goes over on whoever and everybody goes home happy. I couldn't understand the finish, but at least they let him hang around after the match and let the crowd show him some appreciation just one more time. I was really impressed by Solo here too. I'm pretty sure that he wrestled on one of the Australian tour shows, the second tour here. I think he wrestled Slex when he was here. To the listeners who aren't familiar with Slex, he's a fantastic Australian professional wrestler. Please try and hunt down his stuff. Absolutely incredible. But yeah, I thought he looked really sharp in the match. Cabana and Yano, they did what they do really well. And Liger how old is he now? Is he 55 now?
He's 55, yes.
That is just amazing. And please don't think for a second that I'm putting myself in the class of Jushin Liger, but I've been wrestling for half the time he has, and I've got 15 years on him, and he moves better than I do. He still moves incredibly well. It's just outstanding that he's been able to go this long at this level, and despite the brain surgery and all the things he's gone through, he's been able to adapt and thrive in every situation, which I think just speaks to how incredible he is.
Oh yeah, and he's still, for a 55-year-old man, he's still incredible shape. Like when he's got that shirt off, it's like he's 55. Wow, that guy must live at the gym. He must just live at the gym and eat nothing but protein. That's what I'm thinking is the secret behind Jushin Thunder. Like, and here's the thing, Dave, it's like he doesn't need to look like that because he wears a full bodysuit.
Yeah.
That's the thing about his physique.
I think we all just assumed that as time went on that, he wore the suit all the time, but you just imagined in your mind that he would probably let himself go a little bit. And when he had the shirt off during that feud with Suzuki, I was just stunned at the shape that he's still in. He's remarkable.
Yeah. So anyways, Cabana did get the pin on Aaron Solo with the Superman pin at 8 minutes and 1 second. Let's move on to the third match. I really like this third match. It's a tag match. It's the LA Dojo of Clark Connors and Carl Fredericks, and taking on Suzuki Gun, the duo of Minoru Suzuki and El Desperado. Minoru Suzuki being the bane to every young lion's existence. Maybe after Lance Archer, because we'll talk about Lance Archer later on in this show. But what do you think about the LA Dojo guys? In particular, kind of like the guy slated for stardom, Carl Fredericks.
I was very impressed by the way they carried themselves here. The guys don't seem to lack in confidence at all, and it's a pretty, I can speak from personal experience, it's a pretty daunting thing to go in there and see Minoru Suzuki across the other side of the ring, and neither of the guys seem to take a backward step, which is, it seems to me like the LA Dojo has really focused on getting really sharp athletes. And I think they believe in their training system that they don't necessarily want to get someone who's already a finished, polished act and then try to rework them into what they want. Instead, they're getting these guys who are in amazing shape, who are incredible athletes, and then trying to bring them to their system, which, as someone who's a somewhat product of that system myself, that their training is exceptional. They really do just drill fundamentals. You're not there learning, Canadian destroyers and things of that nature, but they teach you the intensity and rigor with which you attack the basics, and that bleeds over into everything else that you do. So some of the guys who were my students went there and trained with Shinsuke back in the day. I think this was maybe in 2006, 2007. And all they really did for 3 months was conditioning and run the universal spot. And they came back twice as good a wrestler as when they left. And also the impression that place leaves on you sets a minimum standard for the sort of professionalism and intensity that you need to attack your professional wrestling career with.
And I think, we say that, Katsuyori Shibata is the head trainer at the LA Dojo. And like, he is a kind of guy that does not back down. And he never has, even when he was a young lion. He was the kind of guy that just got into the face of his opponents. So I think that's something he tries to instill in all his students. And I think, especially like Connors, I really like Connors. He's slated more as a junior heavyweight, but I think this guy can be kind of anything. He can be a heavyweight if he wants to. He can be like a junior heavyweight, but I really think the way he wrestles, he should be a heavyweight guy. Kind of like Roderick Strong's kind of like on the smaller side. But you don't believe he's a junior heavyweight because of the way he wrestles. I think you can kind of apply that kind of idea to Clark Connors, and he doesn't take any shit from anyone in this match, including Minoru Suzuki. We start off with the match. Fredericks versus Minoru Suzuki starts the match off. They do a lot of interaction with each other. At some point, Desperado tags in, and he does he whips Fredericks into the ropes, but Frederick, instead of engaging with Desperado, he goes over and knocks Suzuki off the apron. And at that point, Kevin Kelly and Tiger Hattori are saying, well, he signed his death warrant. That's not a good idea to do that to Minoru Suzuki. Fredericks and Connors hit a nice set of double shoulder tackles on Desperado. Suzuki catches Fredericks on the outside with his armbar, where he kind of wraps his legs around the, what would you call that in MMA, I guess? The triangle. He kind of gets the triangle on him while he's on the apron and Fredericks is still in the ring, and he's doing it over the top rope. So he's giving him a receipt for the strike off the apron earlier in the match. And Suzuki just assaults Fredericks on the outside. So he pulls him out and just beats the living shit out of him. Like I said, it's a receipt for earlier. Now, when you had your match with Minoru Suzuki, did you have a sequence like that in your match with him?
He chopped me until my chest was red raw, and then I chopped him back as hard as I could, and he laughed in my face and called me a baby. So, probably the most horrifying part of our match, though, had nothing to do with striking. He wrapped me up in a knee bar, and that's, we all know how legit Minoru Suzuki is, and my knee was paying for months after that. It wasn't completely torn apart. I was still able to get around on it, but I had a pain in my knee that lasted for months. He is absolutely legit. Everybody knows that. I don't need to explain that. But unlike Fredericks and Connors, I did absolutely nothing to poke the bear during our match. I was very respectful. I fought him as hard as I possibly could, but I certainly didn't go out of my way to poke the bear.
At this point, Fredericks gets back in the ring, and then Desperado tags Suzuki in, and then it's on for Suzuki because he's not going to punish Fredericks. He starts kicking away at the young man. Yeah, Fredericks fires back with these beautiful looking uppercuts, but like you said, like you're referencing, Suzuki no-sells him, and then fires back with these two stiff forearms to his face. And were you on the receiving end of these forearms?
I wasn't, thank goodness, because it looked like the second shot should have just about knocked him out.
Because everyone knows what's coming, so the entire crowd just goes silent because they want to hear the contact of his forearm and his elbow to his opponent's face. I gotta say, they weren't as loud as I'm normally used to hearing them, but still, I would not want to be on the receiving end of any of one, let alone two of these. So, from here, he just does this beautiful spot where he just rubs his wrist into Frederick's face, and I'm just like, I feel sorry for Fredericks, but I'm loving this at the same time, because that's my style of wrestling. If like the fates were kinder and genetics were kinder, and if I ever got into wrestling, that's the kind of wrestler I would be. I would just be like grinding people's like joints and limbs, doing like terrible things to their faces with my knee or my elbow or my wrist. That's just my kind of style of wrestling, Davis.
It really appealed to this crowd too, and it seemed like we were getting Minoru Suzuki's greatest hits in this match, and this crowd were just eating it up. He was an absolute superstar in this match. And, you know, the Young Lions, I think, impressed. They fought hard, but this really was the Minoru Suzuki show.
Definitely. That being said, at some point, Desperado does tag in, and Fredericks is able to hit a spinebuster in Desperado and then make the hot tag to Clark Connors. Clark Connors starts running roughshod on everyone. He hits this beautiful power slam onto Desperado. Desperado is able to counter that by hitting a spear on Connors. Suzuki tags in. Fredericks hits a nice drop kick on Suzuki. The LA Dojo does some really cool double teams on Suzuki, who's like more than game. I think we say this like he's a legit guy. He likes to go and punish his opponents, but he's more than willing to put people over in the match, like sell for them. And if they're doing really good stuff, he's more than willing to say, like, okay, that's good. I'm going to sell for these guys. I'm going to make them look impressive.
Definitely. I thought he gave a lot here. And again, you know, Minoru Suzuki, much like Jushin Liger, he's starting to get up there in age, but it doesn't seem to inhibit him. It doesn't seem to make him any less willing to give his body to his opponents. And yeah, I thought he really went out of his way here to try and make these two young guys look as good as he possibly could.
From here, Fredericks puts on the single leg grab onto Minoru Suzuki. And Dave, do you think he's going to tap from a single leg grab?
Probably not.
Probably not. No. He does not tap. In fact, he's able to rebound. He catches Fredericks with the gotch style pie driver and pins him 1, 2, 3 in what was the time of this match? 9 minutes and 56 seconds. So this is our third match that comes under 10 minutes, and I have to tell you, I love it. I am so tired of having like multiple shows have like multiple matches that run 20 minutes or more.
I think the live crowd really appreciates it too. In each of these opening matches, they came to see a specific thing, and I think they got exactly what they were hoping for. When in the opening match, they're looking for two young guys who they're just looking for some excellent fundamental wrestling and just for the two guys to show a bit of fight. The second match, we're there for the comedy and we're there to highlight Jushin Liger, and then for this match, it's the Minoru Suzuki show, like I said, and they really got everything that they wanted in this match. You got to see a lot of the key spots from Minoru, and I think there's so much that's brilliant about what he does, and they're really subtle little things. There's a point late in the match where he cuts one of the guys off, and he lays a really nice slap on him, and there's this little smirk on his face that, you know, I don't know whether it's done for the camera or what, but it doesn't seem like it. It's just such a natural reaction, like he really just enjoyed the sound that this slap made on somebody's face. So he's so brilliant even at this age. He just seems to get better as he ages. The Fredericks and Connors, this was the first time I'd actually seen either of them, and so I have no idea. You're kind of saying that Fredericks is the guy that's earmarked to be the star. To me, I thought Connors actually stood out in this match. He was really crisp, didn't look overcome by the situation at all. The enormity of the moment, being in there with Minoru, I was really impressed with him. I thought they were both fine, but Connors seemed to really stand out to me.
Yeah, well, I mean, like the thing is Fredericks won the Young Lions Cup tournament this past fall, and he's always the one that is clearly booked to be the dominant guy from the LA dojo over like both Alex Coughlin and Clark Connors. But like I'm a big fan of like both these guys, but I do think as a wrestler, like Clark Connors is just a little bit like ahead of Fredericks, but Fredericks just overall package is, he's tall, he's really good looking, he's got the tattoos, he's got that kind of aura, a little bit more than Connor's, but definitely, I think both guys are going to do very, very well if they stick with New Japan long term. Before they go to the back, Suzuki teases pile driving the referee, but I'm sure that referee had to change his drawers in the back. Let's move on to match 4. So, some people TJ Perkins, Juice Robinson, and Tomohiro Ishii taking on the LIJ team of Bushi, Sanada, and Evil. And recently, TJP has been doing very, very well with New Japan Pro Wrestling. He did the past US tour. He just came over for the current Japanese tour, and I think he's gonna get signed if he hasn't been already with New Japan Pro Wrestling. And what do you feel about that? Because the people had some issues about him in his dying days, and in WWE on 205 Live, he seemed very unmotivated in the work he was presenting on TV. But he gets out of there, goes back on the Indies, he gets into New Japan, kind of through the side door, through the U.S. tours, but also, he recently had a match that got a lot of accolades in Australia with your friend, Damian Slater.
Yeah, this was in my home promotion, Explosive Pro Wrestling, so that was a fantastic match. It actually won Match of the Year last night for Explosive Pro Wrestling, and TJ, to me, I think unmotivated might be the right way to say it, and I've regularly commented just from watching the booking in WWE. And to me, Rollins is a really good example of this at the moment. WWE, they almost seem to enjoy testing their most passionate employees. TJ's been a wrestler since he was 13 years old. This is a guy who has done and seen it all and is still involved. He's, at times, to try and stay involved in professional wrestling, he was homeless, and that's not a work. That's for real. And despite that, he could have left at any stage. He could have tried to get a job doing something else, but he didn't. He stuck at this because it's something that he loves. And WWE seem to almost go out of their way to test their most passionate employees. They book them in ways that are not really befitting of their skill set. And I understand that, they have needs and requirements for their shows, and there's things that they don't need, but they seem to almost go out of their way to try to put these guys in the worst possible situations. And I think that really showed on TJ towards the end of his run in WWE. And I think just getting back out there and being in control of his own destiny, because to me, TJ is a guy who is incredibly creative, and I think having that taken away from him on every level in WWE, it really saps your passion for what it is that you do, and it does just become strictly work. And he doesn't strike me as that kind of guy, and I think being able to get back out on the independents, being able to control his own bookings, control his merch, control where and when he works, and I think that's been liberating for him. And, you look at the shape he's in and the way he's performing and the creativity, there seems to be a spark there again with him that was missing towards the end of his time with WWE. And, as someone who considers him a friend, I couldn't be happier for him. It seems like he's as comfortable in his own skin as he's ever been, it's super exciting. To me, that's when any performer is going to be at their best, when they stop performing and they just be themselves. And I think TJ's been able to find that in the last year.
Yeah, definitely. I think he's going to be a big part of New Japan in 2020 going forward. So let's get to the match. So it starts off with Sanada and Juice Robinson starting off in the match. There's a lot of lockups, counters to start. There's a big pop from the crowd. This crowd really, really loves some Sanada, Davis. You can really tell they're a big Sanada crowd.
He was incredibly over. And one thing I noticed was he seemed to be in the best shape that I'd seen him in for a really long time. And I thought maybe it was just my eye, or that I just hadn't seen him wrestle in a few months. And then Tiger Hattori actually brings it up and says how good Sanada's looking and that he's been working on his diet, and he looks amazing at the moment.
He does. Like, I don't really think of him as ever being in bad shape, but definitely looks a lot leaner. And I think it's probably going towards maybe, getting ready for a kind of a main event push where he's expected to, wrestle at least for 30 minutes in a high level match. They do this spot where they catch each other's legs, Juice and Sanada, and they do the spot where like, you put my leg down first. No, you put my leg down first. And they go to tease it, and then they tease not doing it. Then finally they do it, but like, Sanada tricks him and, tries to roll him up. He goes for the Paradise Lock, but thankfully Juice is able to escape that. TJP tags in, and TJP and Juice do these double team moves on Sanada where they knock him down, and they're about to, they fall down. They're both on the floor, basically on the mat, and TJP kips up, no problem, but Juice, I don't know if it's a work or if it's legit. He can't kip up. I think it's a work because they're playing it for laughs. He has to get TJ to come over and help him get back up so they can do their, a double team elbow on Sanada, who's been laying on the mat for like 3 minutes by this time. And it's just like, well, if I'm Sanada, I would just got out of the way and say, listen, you can do the spot, but if you think I'm staying here for 3 minutes and then like you hit me with a move, you're out of your fucking mind.
Sometimes the focus just isn't on you. So you just got to lay there and let the moment play out.
From here, Sanada puts both TJP and Juice in the Paradise Lock, and then he does his double ass dropkick on both of them. The crowd loves it.
Did you hear Tiger Hattori's commentary here?
I might have missed the call. What did he say?
Kevin Kelly says to him, "Have you ever been put in the Paradise Lock?" And he just says, "I don't like it."
I can see probably on a house show or maybe on a show that's been broadcast on New Japan World, but maybe he's been put in the Paradise Lock. I definitely know Rocky Romero does not like being put in the Paradise Lock because he suffered the embarrassment of it as a commentator trying to help Yano in, I think, a G1 match from, I think it was 2018. G1, I think, maybe. But, he does it. If you're wondering where their partner is, where Ishii has been, well, he got knocked down by Sanada, so he wasn't going to be able to help them escape the Paradise Lock or the double ass drop kick at this point in the match. From here, there's a tornado DDT, from TJP onto Sanada. Finally, we get both Ishii and Evil coming to the match, and they just, they have their typical Ishii and Evil exchange, a lot of shoulder tackles, a lot of power moves on each other, a lot of hitting each other in the face with elbows and forearms. Big chops on Evil from Ishii in the corner. Big elbow exchange between these two. Evil takes Ishii down with a big shoulder tackle. LIJ just does a triple team sequence on Juice Robinson at some point. Juice hits Dusty Punches and the leg lariat on Bushi in this match, and it's kind of interesting to see, like Colt Cabana and Juice Robinson. Like, I really feel one of these guys should just give up doing the Dusty Punches.
Yeah, I actually noticed there were a few things throughout the course of the show that it seemed like maybe guys weren't seeing what everybody else was doing before they went out there, because there were a few things that seemed to overlap each other a little bit, I suppose is the way that you put it.
From here, TJP hits a Saito suplex on Evil, which is very impressive considering that, Evil looks a little bit heavier than, TJ Perkins. Juice hits the cannonball and left hand of God onto Evil, and, the Pulp Friction on Bushi for the win at, let me check the time of this match, at 11 minutes and 58 seconds. So our first match going over 12 minutes, but still a very fun match. So it really breezed by very quickly, Davis.
Yeah, again, I thought it just highlighted everybody's strengths, and then it seemed to me like the crowd really came to life when Ishii and Evil got in the ring together for the first time, and that seemed to be where there was a big pickup in the intensity from there right through to the finish. And yeah, I thought everybody looked good in the match. My thought at the time was that they probably had Juice go over because they're lining him up for another shot at the US title, but with what happened later, it's obviously still continuing, but I'm just not sure where it's actually heading. But it seemed to me at the end of the match maybe that Ishii and Evil were sizing each other up a little bit as they were leaving. I don't know if that's preempting anything that's going to happen. I think they've got fantastic chemistry together. I'd love to see that match.
Match 5. Let's move on to match 5 here. Rocky Romero, Yo, and Hirooki Goto take on the team of Jado, Taiji Ishimori, and Kenta. And little unknown fact, maybe, or little known fact here, Davis, is that Jado, Ishimori, and Kenta are all former GHC, Junior Heavyweight Tag Team title holders. Did you know this?
Yeah, right. Now that you're saying that, yeah, it's very obvious now that you brought it up. But yeah, I didn't pick up on that at all.
And I think Kenta and Ishimori were actually champions, like a championship team themselves. And Jado, of course, has held that title with his longtime partner Gedo. I think in the last time, the Bull Club, not the Bull Club, Suzuki Gun were in Noah is when Gedo and Jado held those tag team titles. Kenta gets a mixed reaction from the crowd, but I heard more boos than cheers for him. What did you think?
I thought so too. Yeah, it seems like the heel shtick is definitely getting over.
Yeah, from here, Kenta and Goto start off the match, and Kenta does a lot of stalling on the outside, learning a lot from both Taichi and from Jay White, it seems. He's making Goto wait. He's getting a lot of heat from the crowd as well, because they wanted to see these guys go at each other. They end up taking their respective partners in this case, Ishimori for Kenta's side and Yo for Goto's side. They do some interaction with each other. Yo does these beautiful arm drags and does a drop kick on Ishimori. Then from here, Rocky and Yo do some double team moves on Ishimori because they're, Rocky is the coach of Roppongi 3K and he does a lot of tag teaming with both Sho and Yo. Jado hits Yo with a kendo stick to a big cracking sound. I was like, ow. And then just takes, the advantage obviously goes over to the Bullet Club from here. And now I have to ask you, Davis, as a wrestler, have you ever been hit with a kendo stick?
Not that I recall, actually. No, it's, again, not something I'd really thought about. But yeah, I don't think I have. And I can tell you that if someone was going to hit me with something like that, I would hope that it's not a legitimate kendo stick, because those things are not to be trifled with.
I don't know. Do you think this one that Jado uses is a gimmick kendo stick?
I mean, I would think that at a professional level, if you can check your shots, you can probably find a way to make sure that a kendo stick's not going to kill a man. Right.
Well, I'm hoping it's a gimmick one because he hit Yo really hard with this kendo stick. There's a sequence where there's a lot of brawling outside from all participants in this match. Kenta is paired off with Goto, Jado with, Ishimori with Rocky, Jado with Yo. From here, Ibushi does these, series of, hard chops on Yo. He is a very underrated striker, I feel, Taiji Ishimori.
Yeah, definitely. He's got a great intensity to everything that he does, I think. And when he first came to New Japan, I wasn't sure how he was going to work as a heel, because he's a good-looking guy. He's built so well, and everything he does is so impressive. But he's done a pretty good job of maintaining himself as an effective heel.
Yeah, I mean, he's you gotta give it up to this guy being one of the smartest wrestlers, working a babyface style throughout most of his career through his Toryumon days through to Noah. And then when he also gotta give up, this guy's a hell of a worker. He got out of his Noah contract and told him he's going to the United States, but he ended up signing with Japan Pro Wrestling. What a brilliant man. Some people will be like, oh, that, you respect that? I go, listen, the guy got paid more. How can I not respect that? He got out of what he felt was a bad situation contract-wise. He went to a better financial situation for him, better situation overall, because he's definitely a bigger star in New Japan Pro Wrestling than he was in Pro Wrestling Noah. So I do respect it. You can't not respect it, in my opinion. What do you think?
You've got a limited span as a wrestler to make a living, and I think it's obviously in his best interest to maximize his income while he can. The style that he works is pretty high risk at times, very high impact, and you've only got a certain number of years to make your living. And after that, who knows what happens, whether you can actually transition into another profession or whether this is your one chance to really make your money. So, yeah, I certainly don't begrudge him for going where the money is. And, for people who would say that you sign a contract so you know what you're getting in for, I don't disagree with the sentiment, but at the end of the day, wrestling is a profession where generally the promotions get over on the wrestlers rather than the other way around. And if we can chalk one up for the wrestlers, then I'm certainly not sad about that.
No, definitely not. From here, Ishimori does this really beautiful, move where he does kind of a head scissors takeover, but he is able to maintain contact with, like, both his feet are, like, vicing his opponent's head, and then he does the crank where he, like, looks like he's twisting his body and he's, like, almost gonna break the neck of his opponent. But the whole time, from the head scissors takeover to that crank, he does not lose contact with his opponent's head. It's pretty impressive.
It was sensational, but then had a clever spin at the end of it too. So it wasn't just a flashy move; it had a very effective end to it also.
Okay, from here, Yo is able to recover. He hits a drop kick on both Jado and KENTA, does a dragon screw leg whip on KENTA, then he gets the hot tag to Goto, who's just raring to go in there against KENTA. Big strike exchange between KENTA and Goto that Goto eventually wins. Goto hits up KENTA with his follow-in lariat. Basically, the follow-in lariat, that's what I call it. It's like the move that Marufuji invented, where opponent hits the ropes, but Goto or Marufuji will, like, just follow straight in and bounce off the rope 2 seconds after and just hit their opponents with a lariat. I love that move. From here, Rocky hits the forever lariats or clotheslines on KENTA and Ishimori. Jado has the kendo stick now. And he's going to use it on Rocky, and, like, both, Kevin Kelly and Tiger Hattori are, like, going nuts. They don't want to see their friend. They're Kevin Kelly, his commentary partner, doesn't want to see him get assaulted by Jado, who's always bullying Kevin Kelly. He's going to use it on Rocky, but thankfully, Goto saves Romero. He is able to block and capture the kendo stick mid-strike. And then from here, Rocky rolls up Jado for the win let me see the time. I should really have this prepared better. I apologize. In 11 minutes flat. So again, like, within the 10 to 12 minute range, another very fun multi-man tag match here.
Yeah, I thought Goto in particular really stood out in this match, and he really looked good. I feel like he's probably the next guy for KENTA, I would imagine. I don't tend to know too much about the goings on and what comes next, but it seemed to me like he would be the next guy for KENTA. This heel iteration of KENTA, I feel like he's really buying into the reputation, the internet reputation that he has for being a bully who can give it out but doesn't want to take it. And I thought the beginning of the match played into that beautifully. He was avoiding Goto, trying not to get in there with him, and then as soon as his team has the advantage, he's getting in there and starting to bully his opponents. So, he's on the record kind of had issues with other New Japan wrestlers over the years, and I think he's playing it very cleverly here. He's working a completely different character to what he has in the past, and still maintaining that aura of being a real hard ass, while just having that tinge of cowardice to him at the same time. It's extremely interesting to watch him go through a different phase of his career now. But I was really impressed by Goto.
This heel character from KENTA, I think it's something that he probably developed while he was in the WWE, because, like, that's where he really became a heel, was like on 205 Live. And to some extent NXT, but it really developed that he had that program with, with Mustafa Ali and Buddy Murphy for the Cruiserweight title. And, like, he really, I think, came into his own as a character more than as a wrestler on 205 Live. So that's where I'm thinking, like, if you want to give anyone credit, like, or the place where he learned that, you'd have to give credit to his time in the WWE if you're enjoying his heel character. And speaking of Goto, so you're thinking he's next for the Never title against KENTA, maybe at Wrestle Kingdom. But, there's all this buzz, Davis, about Katsuyori Shibata. Like, he's been taking bumps. like hard bumps in interactions with matches involving Kenta, his former, best friend and tag team partner. So I have to say, if he's taking bumps, that maybe he's been cleared to come back into the ring. I don't know how you feel about that, because like he had a very serious brain injury, and something similar to what like maybe Bryan Danielson had that forced him to retire for about 3 years. But one of the things I kind of theorize, this is just a complete guess, and I have no idea if this is true or not, but just my guess, maybe one of the reasons why he went to the LA dojo was to maybe take a similar treatment to what like Bryan Danielson did to get over his injuries, which is like use a hyperbaric air, like oxygen chamber to like kind of heal his brain. So that's my theory. And if he's taking these really hard bumps, like he's taking bumps off of aprons hard to the guardrail, that, okay, one, like millimeter off, you're gonna really run the risk of seriously injuring yourself again, or even killing yourself. So I have to think he's been cleared. I don't know what you think about that.
It's an argument I've been having in my mind probably since the death of Masaru, I would say, where I just there is the artistic side of my brain that says, there are guys out there who they climb buildings, or they bungee jump, or they skydive, or whatever it happens to be, and maybe that is the way they make their money, and we allow them, even though they're putting their life at risk, we allow them the freedom to do that. And it's very tricky that this is an area that maybe people feel like they can almost police it. This is not everyone is built to work a 9-to-5 job. Not everyone is built psychologically to live an average life. And you will have some guys who are almost like a supernova. They're gonna burn incredibly bright, but they're gonna burn out quickly. And it's a really tough discussion that I have. I don't think I've gone back to watch any of Masawa's classic matches since his passing, and I do have some difficulty watching guys do some of these things, like knowing what Shibata would go through. It's really hard to watch some of those matches with Goto where they're just absolutely unloading on each other. But again, the creative side of my brain, the artistic side of my brain says I want these guys to have the freedom to express themselves however they see fit. And it's a horrible realization when you see that this is the sort of damage that it can cause. But at the end of the day, this is his body, and this is his choice to make. Whether or not New Japan want to take the liability of putting him in that situation is a totally different argument. And as a corporate entity, they would need to put certain protections in place to make sure that they're not putting him at undue risk. But if New Japan can't give that to him, and in Daniel Bryan's case, if WWE wouldn't give that to him, maybe they'd seek it elsewhere where there aren't the same sort of protections in place. So it's a tricky one, WH. I can't say I have a really strong opinion one way or the other, but I probably do lean slightly towards we all have one life to live, and I'll be damned if I tell someone else how to live theirs.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like if he's doing this stuff, if he's cleared, then the risk, to him getting seriously injured again, like as long as he doesn't do the stuff that really, did a number on him, which were the legit shoot headbutts. So as long as that's completely taken off of the table, he can do worked headbutts. Like I think you can do a worked headbutt that protects your head, protects your opponent head, that's done. Just don't do the real ones anymore, and just keep the head trauma to a minimum. I know it's wrestling, it's hard to say, but if that's the case for him, then as a fan, I would love to see him back, but I don't want to see him die in the ring either. That would horrify me. And there's like all these things about like, the matches Naito and Ibushi have that, people will say, well, if, like that's the life they lead. And I agree. Listen, if they're going to have that kind of match, okay. I don't want to be there if it goes wrong, like with,
sadly,
like that would traumatize me, I think, far more than if I had the, unfortunate, situation where I watched it even on TV, like for me, I'd be like, wow, like, and I've seen the match where Misawa died. It's like, and I knew because it was on tape, but I was just like, okay. As soon as before he even hit the ground, I just turned it off. I was like, no, I can't watch the contact with the mat. Anyways, I don't want to get into morbid details here, but like, sure. You're just saying, like, I don't want to be at a show, and it's highly likely, because I do attend a lot of New Japan shows in Tokyo, that, like, if you're gonna have this high risk, situation between a wrestler and his opponent, that wrestler, there's a good chance that something might happen. I just don't want to be there to see it. And so, like, that's how I feel about that. But anyways, let's move on. Let's go to a more positive topic, and that's the next match, our sixth match on the show. It's for the Rev Pro British Cruiserweight title. The defending champion, El Phantasmo, taking on the challenger Sho of Roppongi 3K. Sho comes out first with his kind of 8-bit video game style music, which I'm kind of iffy about. I think it sounds cool, but it doesn't fit like this kind of, shooter character that Sho has. So I'm kind of hoping he's going to change it at some point in his career. ELP comes out second with his, his whole light up jacket gimmick, and he's jaw-jacking with a lot of the fans in the crowd. But straight away he gets in the ring, and before the bell rings, Sho spears the shit out of this man and then starts punching him in the head, and I'm loving it because I hate El Phantasmo, Davis.
Yeah, I've certainly heard you're a huge fan of him. But look, he is a great dickhead. He's not afraid. There are so many wrestlers these days that are afraid to go for heat, and irrespective of, I have no idea. Obviously, you hear rumors, and you never know where to disseminate the truth from rumors. But he's not afraid to be the dick, and I thought the opening to this match was great, because from his entrance to all of his interactions, Phantasmo was just being so annoying. He was getting in Sho's face. He was holding the belts up in his face. And Sho just played it so cool. There was no reaction whatsoever. He just looked completely unfazed. And then the second that the match started, he just exploded out of the blocks straight into a spear. Like you said, just jumped on top of him and started throwing right hands. And I thought that was really cool, that it really painted a really clear good guy and a really clear bad guy, that this was an easy match. There was no guessing for who anybody was going to cheer and who everyone was going to be behind. Sho Tanaka was a dead set babyface in this match. Oh yeah,
and the crowd absolutely love Sho Tanaka and all the things he's doing to El Phantasmo here. There's a nice series of kicks into ELP's chest and face from Sho. And at this point, Rocky Romero joins the commentary. He wasn't doing the commentary before this because he was slated to wrestle, but as soon as his match is over, I guess he showered, changed, came out to join Tiger Hattori and Kevin Kelly. From there, there's a leg sweep and basement drop kick on El Phantasmo while he's sitting on the apron from Sho Tanaka. ELP dumps Sho at the feet of the fans in the front row, which I thought was a really good spot. Like, they're brawling outside. Phantasmo gets the advantage, and he just picks him up and throws him right on the floor in front of all these fans. And just kind of as a way to, like, I don't know, kind of F you to the fans without touching them. And I don't mind people getting heat. Like, I just say this: don't touch kids. Don't touch kids in the audience. Like, even if you're just flicking off their hats, don't touch the kids. Like, leave them alone. Anyways, I don't want to get on a diatribe about that. From here, ELP, does a gross spot where he spits on his hand. Like a big wad of spit, of saliva on his hand, and he just slaps Sho in the back. And I'm sure Sho is like, you can drop me on my head, you can kick me in the face, you can send a forearm into my nose. But I can imagine that maybe that wad of spit on his back has to be one of the most unpleasant things he's ever experienced in professional wrestling.
It was disgusting, but just listen, the reaction you're having right now, there was a visceral reaction from the crowd when they saw, because wrestlers spit at each other all the time and it gets a reaction, but to see the spit dropping out of his mouth, this giant wad of spit right into his hand, and then the chop. It was truly disgusting.
I do have to give him credit for producing that amount of saliva during a wrestling match. I imagine like all your body moisture is going into like sweat and stuff like that. So be able to produce that amount of like saliva, like it's a significant amount. When you people see it, if you haven't seen that show already, and before you're listening to this, like go watch it obviously first. But it's just, wow, it's disgusting. But anyways, he then moves over to like putting a Sho into the Tree of Woe, and he does the stepping on Sho's dick part, that kind of move he does where he just like, which to me is just like, that's a DQ. I don't touch the groin. It's a DQ in any kind of sporting combat situation. But he's mocking Rocky at the same time because he just runs over to Rocky, the corner where the commentary table is, says forever. And he starts stomping on Sho's dick, gets off. Forever goes back to stomping on Sho's dick, and I'm just like, okay. I mean, that things like that gets heat, and I think that's great. And I don't mind the spit because it's not on me, so I don't care. But I just think it's gross. And yeah, I hear a lot of rumors about the guy, and I don't know what's true or not true. So I just say like what I see on screen now is fine. I don't see him doing anything to the fans anymore, especially the kids. So it's all perfectly fine with me. He's still not one of my favorite wrestlers, but I do appreciate the amount of heat he can generate in his matches.
Yeah, and we both mentioned how over Sho Tanaka was in this match, and you can really credit Phantasmo with a huge portion of that as well. That a large part of this is that people want to see him get his comeuppance, and obviously Sho Tanaka's a fantastic wrestler, and he was really, really good in this match, but it's the hate that Phantasmo draws that allows his opponents to get as over as they do.
From here, Phantasmo's getting a lot of heat for stomping on Sho's dick in this spot, and then but Sho does get his revenge. Phantasmo gets his comeuppance because he gets hit with this beautiful Spider German. So for people who don't know, explain what a Spider German is, Davis.
So it's when one person generally is seated on the top rope, but in this case, I think Phantasmo was actually standing on the second rope, and Tanaka's in the Tree of Woe, and he pulls himself up using his abdominal strength, and then he grabs Phantasmo and German suplexes him.
Yeah, and from here, Sho goes back on the offense. He hits a series of rolling Germans, but at some point, ELP rolls up Sho as a counter to that. Sho then hits the deadlift German into more rolling Germans. I'm like, wow, okay, he's not done with these. And then he does a third series of rolling German suplexes into a bridge, but he only gets a 2 count. So I was just amazed. I couldn't believe Sho Tanaka's core strength and his overall strength is unbelievable. This guy's stamina is unbelievable. He did a series of rolling Germans. He did 3 of them. He did rolling Germans, got countered, move, okay, deadlift into a rolling series of Germans, stop, then another series of rolling Germans. As a wrestler, doing a German suplex is not the easiest thing, I would imagine, right?
No, look, I'm not a suplex guy myself. Been suplexed plenty of times, but not really my thing. My size, I tend to try and use gravity base rather than pick people up. But yeah, look, it just kept going and going and going, and it was kind of accentuated by both the deadlift German, which looked really impressive. The way that he worked that was just really impressive. Really well sold. And then the very end of the sequence was a really nice ocean suplex into a bridge. Just beautiful stuff.
From here, ELP gets the advantage. He puts on a Boston Crab to show. It's a really painful looking Boston Crab as well. And then at some point, El Phantasmo hits the Styles Clash for a big 2 count on Sho. And then, later on, he goes for the V-trigger, hits that. Not a very good looking V-trigger, I have to say. Kenny Omega does do it better, than him. Then he goes for he attempts the One-Winged Angel. So he's done this before, where he's kind of paying homage to previous leaders of the Bullet Club, but he's not a leader of the Bullet Club. Davis, that's Jay White right now. And so it kind of makes you think, is he gonna go for a play for that? Does he have the frame to become a heavyweight? I don't know, but I can't remember if earlier in the match he did anything as an homage to Prince Devitt or not. Do you remember?
No, I don't remember seeing anything specific anyway.
So I guess there's no love for good old Fergal there, only for AJ and Kenny there. From here, Sho hits a power breaker power bomb. So this is the power bomb where he drives his opponent into his knees, not into the mat, but into his knees. It looks very, very painful. And he only gets a 2 with that, because that's like one of his big moves, but it's not his finisher. ELP pulls Marty Asami into the way of Sho's spear. Poor Marty Asami. I feel so bad for this guy sometimes. He gets really assaulted and abused on some of these shows. He goes for a belt shot, but misses Sho. Sho teases the belt shot himself as he gets the advantage over ELP. But, Sho is an honorable man, Davis. He's an honorable wrestler. He doesn't do the shenanigans, so he tosses the belt away. But this is the point where, like, you can feel the drama. Like, oh my God, it could go either way at this point.
Yeah, I thought actually that he might hit him with the belt, because after everything Phantasmo's done, you could certainly justify the babyface railing him with the belt. But I was actually concerned watching it. I thought, oh, geez, they might actually boo him for putting the belt down because they really want to see Phantasmo get his. But he actually got a really positive reception for doing it, which, that's great when you can. He was playing his character to a T, a guy who plays within the rules and wants to do the honorable thing. He just tossed the belt away and got on with the match.
I think one thing I have to give credit to this audience, for one thing, they were hot throughout the whole show. They were an amazing audience, and I think really added to the atmosphere of the show. But I think they are New Japan fans. They want to see, like, fair play and sportsmanship in some of their matches, especially from their baby faces. They don't want to see, like, their baby faces do dastardly stuff, do, rule breaking tactics, do things that the heels do in their matches. So I think this audience was well up for, like, not going to business for themselves and being selfish, but, like, being part of the match by reacting how, they're supposed to react. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. It was, fantastic crowd tonight that very much weren't looking to put themselves over. They were just looking to have fun and add to the atmosphere of the show.
From here, we see speaking of dastardly tactics, Ishimori, Phantasmo's tag team partner in their IWGP Junior Heavyweight Championship team, comes in to interfere, but thankfully, Sho's partner, Yo, comes down. They fend off Ishimori. They hit the 3K on him. They roll him out of the way. Yo goes out to make sure he doesn't interfere anymore. Sho is able to hit the shock arrow, a beautiful move, by the way, just one of my favorites. But there's no ref. Marty Asami is still down, and there's no replacement ref. So but once I think Kento Sato comes in, he starts counting 1, 2, but it's been too long, Davis. El Phantasmo kicks out. There's a top rope German, but ELP, this guy, I might not be a huge fan of his character, but my God, he's an amazing athlete. He flips out of the thing. He does the dick punch. I don't know if it's as good as Chris Bosch. If you're familiar with old school Pro Wrestling Guerrilla, Chris Bosch had this amazing Jean-Claude Van Damme dick punch, I think Phantasmo's getting there, but, like, it's still not Chris Bosch level. But he transitions the dick punch to the CR2, his finishing maneuver, and he gets the 3 count on Sho Tanaka in 20 minutes and 23 seconds. So this is our first match that has gone to the 20-minute limit. And again, it didn't feel like it, cause, like, I think cause we weren't bombarded with all these, like, over 10-minute matches before this match, and this is like the first one, and it's a title match, and it got a lot of build throughout the show and video package and stuff. That, okay, this is an important match, it's a title match, let's give it importance by it being the first one that goes over 20 minutes.
Yeah, you really hit the nail on the head there. That by keeping the times of the other matches down, this was the first match with stakes, and it felt like it had stakes, and the wrestlers should have more invested in it. They should put more into their match. They should be more willing to fight, because there's something other than just a win or a loss at play here. So they're fighting for the British Cruiserweight Championship, and I thoroughly enjoyed this match. Sho Tanaka is a superstar just waiting to happen. Terrific look to him. Amazing babyface. incredible fire. Just he is the kind of guy who he sells really well. So you stay invested throughout the heat. There's so many. To me, the word heat has kind of gotten bastardized over the years, and so many people think of it as just the portion of the match where the heel beats the babyface up. But, you know, El Phantasmo, he gets heat. He uses his minutes effectively. He gets heat. He makes you want to see the babyface come back and kick the living shit out of him. And he did an amazing job in this match doing that. And then as the babyface, when it's your turn to go, you need to go and you need to go hard. And Sho Tanaka just made every point a winner. I was so impressed with this match. I really enjoyed it. Really enjoyed it.
I do think eventually, people say, you know, like maybe his height is a detriment, but I think this guy has enough aura to him that, like, you know, if he wants to eventually, I think he can probably transition into the heavyweight division. Because he's not really that much smaller than Shingo Takagi, is he?
No, he doesn't seem to be. Takagi, I think much like Tanaka, Takagi obviously has an amazing presence to him, and that makes him appear an awful lot larger than he is. But you might be right. I'm not sure there is a significant size difference between them. And Tanaka's got that same sort of presence to me. He's still developing it, obviously, but he's a can't miss for me.
I think they've already set up a nice, like, you know, rivalry between, you know, Shingo Takagi and Sho Tanaka that, like, when they're ready to pull the trigger on him as a heavyweight, like, the person they're going to use to legitimize him would be Shingo, I think, because it's a naturally built-in feud, and, like, they have this amazing rivalry. So, like, you know, okay, Shingo's a heavyweight star. We want to make Sho a heavyweight star. Who do we put in there with him to legitimize him? Shingo. Perfect. Easy. Let's move on. Right? So, yeah. Speaking of moving on, let's go to match 7. Another title match. This is for the IWGP United States title. David Finlay returning back from his shoulder injury. The challenger taking on the new United States champion, Lance Archer. And, I had a lot of anticipation for this match. I am a big fan of David Finlay. I'm always kind of saddened as, like, how he's not kind of pushed a little bit harder. I'm not saying he should get the Juice push, but I do wish, like, he would get a tag team run with, not necessarily with Juice, because I think Juice's, like, position in the company is as a single star. But I would love to see him, maybe him and Hanare would make a great tag team, I feel, or him and one of the veterans as his senpai do, like, a senior junior tag team. I think he could have a lot of success with that. Maybe with Tanahashi, I think would be a perfect fit for him. But, you know, like, him and Juice are, I think, going to transition more into doing tag team stuff. But in the meantime, we need a challenger to help establish Lance Archer as a dominant champion. So why not the partner of the man he beat, David Finlay? And what was your anticipation for this match?
Not huge, to be honest. So I've not seen a lot of Lance Archer's recent work, which I've heard has all been a massive improvement on where he'd been previous to that. And I hadn't seen a huge amount of David Finlay either. And what I had seen was fine, but I just hadn't seen him stand out in the way that I'd sort of his reputation has been that he's been improving a fair amount, and I hadn't borne witness to that yet, just through lack of having seen him work. So I didn't have a huge amount of anticipation for this match. I was quietly looking forward to seeing Archer because of the hype around his recent performances. But yeah, I didn't have a huge anticipation going in, but I actually really enjoyed this match. The way Archer enters, and this kind of gets to what I was talking about before, there being some things that kind of overlap. He kind of treats the young boys very much in the same way that Minoru Suzuki does. He's just nailing everyone on his way to the ring and throwing everybody around. To me, there's a real throwback Gaijin feeling to Lance Archer at the moment. He's got a bit of a sense of danger and recklessness to him that I think has really been lacking for a long time. And it makes his matches, and it makes the feeling towards him a lot more exciting. I think there's a sense of danger around what he's doing at the moment.
Yeah, definitely. There's a recurring theme through a lot of the heels on this show. So Minoru Suzuki makes it a point to like hit several of the young lions whenever he comes out for his matches. Actually, ELP mistreated several of the young lions by like kind of kicking the second rope into their crotches as they're coming through the through the ropes to like kind of take his ring jacket back to the back and stuff like that. And he just really mean to the young lions. And then here we get Lance Archer, who makes it a point to not only like hit several of the young lions, but he makes it a point to hit all of them. Like some people escaped unscathed with Minoru Suzuki. Some people didn't get, weren't on the receiving end of, ELP's bullying. But, oh no, not Lance Archer. Lance Archer hit each and every young lion at ringside for this match. And I have to say, I am all for it because I do think he gets a lot of heat on the dude. And I think those guys, maybe, I don't know if they're fans of it or not, but you gotta admit, they probably like, you know what, people are paying attention to me right now because like, I just got assaulted by this, this giant of a man.
Yeah, that's it. You get a little bit of a spotlight on you, which I'm sure feels very exciting. That said, probably not, you don't always want to be assaulted by a giant 7-foot man. So
I gotta think that one of these days, like whether it's Minoru Suzuki or Lance Archer, that they're gonna give, some young lion that they're ready to like kind of strap the rocket to, that the spot's gonna be Lance Archer is gonna come around to attack them at ringside, but they're not gonna take his shit. They're gonna attack him first, cost him the match later on, and then just start a feud with him, because I think that would be a great way to jumpstart someone's career in New Japan Pro Wrestling.
Yeah, definitely.
But speaking of which, so you get the introductions out of the way, and right out of the gate, David Finlay starts, the match off like similar to like what Show did with ELP. He just does this big shotgun drop kick to Lance Archer and just goes on the attack against the larger man. For a while, like, he's kind of getting the advantage on Archer, but Archer, sweeps, Finlay's legs while he's on the apron. So like at this point, Archer's on the mat, on the floor outside the ring. Finlay's trying to attack him while he's on the apron, but, Archer, is able to use a clothesline to sweep at Finlay's leg. And then he kind of wheelbarrows, Finlay right from the apron into the guardrail. And I've got like, oh man, that's gotta suck. That's gotta be so painful for Finlay. And he just came back from a shoulder injury. I was like, ew.
It's pretty risky. It's something I've been on the receiving end of myself. And yeah, you need a big, strong fellow like Lance Archer to be able to hurl you safely into the guardrail. That's probably, there's no safe way really to hit the guardrail, but in the safest possible fashion, I guess.
Yes, well, he's not done here. Good old Lance Archer. He's not done assaulting David Finlay. He picks him up in a power bomb, and he does the power bomb, but not onto the floor or the apron or anything. He power bombs him onto all the young lions at ringside. I was like, this is amazing. This is so great.
He then follows up with a big flip dive onto them all as well. And to me, this only just came to mind, but I get this sense of danger around him, probably in the way of Mike Awesome in his prime. That just, here's this huge guy who just hurls himself around and is willing to just take out anybody in his path. It was. Like I said, I hadn't been keeping up with his recent work, and I was really impressed. Finlay looked really sharp at the beginning of this match. As a fan, you want a babyface who is going to fight for you, and if you put the effort into supporting him and cheering for him and giving him your energy, you want to know that this guy will fight for you. And I thought the way David Finlay came out at the beginning of this match was fantastic. He just came out like an absolute house of fire and was really taking it to the much bigger man.
Definitely. He is actually very underrated as a babyface. I'm really hoping 2020 is a year where he gets a bit of a push, maybe up to that U.S. title scene, maybe even the never scene. I do think he has a lot of potential. He's a really young guy, so I'm not that worried about him at this moment, but I do think you got a window with this guy. You should try to push him to that next level, because I think he has the talent for it. But at this point, let's get back into the ring. Everyone's back in the ring now. Everyone's recovered on the outside. Finlay rallies back, but Archer just cuts him off with this big boot to the face, and then he does his kind of rope walk spot, and then I think he hits two sides, and then while holding on to David Finlay's arm, this man is like, I don't know how legit tall he is. He's like 6'6", over 6'6". He's 6'7", 6'8", 6'9", maybe 7. I don't know. I don't think he's 7 exactly, but he's just under there. He does a moonsault off the top rope. Like, he transitions his feet so he can do a moonsault, and he lands midair on David Finlay while keeping contact with this guy's arm. It's just amazing how agile this dude is, and I cannot believe, seriously, that he is not a star in a major American promotion.
I had to rewind to make sure that I saw what I saw, because I was just astounded. I figured he was going to do the traditional Undertaker rope walk, and he'd come up with a very standard clothesline or something of that variation. And then this giant man just decides to do a moonsault from the top rope instead, moonsault body press. I was stunned.
The Archer showcase continues as he hits what I would call a twisting Vader bomb. So he has David Finlay like on the mat in the corner. He goes up to do kind of what the Vader bomb, but he kind of twists midair and he lands on him in a body press position. I'm just like, okay, this guy, there's no end to his tricks as far as how agile he is. There's an overhead suplex by Archer onto Finlay by Archer grabbing, like, I don't know if it's legit or not, because it looks good. He's grabbing him by the ears and kind of tossing him over his head. It's pretty impressive.
Yeah, it just looked like a giant just ragdolling a much smaller human being. But,
Finlay hasn't given up. He's still in the fight. He hits a spear on Archer here. Finlay escapes the blackout power bomb and applies the sleeper. He gives a super kick to the face of Archer. Archer hits the derailer, which is basically the pounce, onto Finlay, and then he gets him in a choke slam for a 1, a 2. Oh, Finlay's not down. And I think this is where the crowd was like, okay, we don't think he's gonna win, but my God, we're gonna get behind Finlay, because he is taking an ass kicking throughout this whole match.
Yeah, he was an absolutely perfect undersized babyface here. He was just being manhandled, and he really made, and not that Archer can't look good on his own, but he really made Lance Archer look fantastic here. And then, he made his moments count when it was his time and the focus was on him. I thought he executed brilliantly.
And here we come to the closing stretch of the match, and this is brilliant. So, Archer does hit the blackout power bomb, but he pulls Finlay up at 2, like something like, oh no, I'm not done with this guy. I can beat him anytime now. So he's going for another power bomb, but Finlay rolls him up and he gets a 2, a very close 2. There's a stunner from a chokeslam attempt from Archer. So, like, Finlay is able to hit the Stone Cold Stunner, and he gets a 2 on Archer. And this crowd is really biting on all these false finishes. It's amazing to watch. Archer blocks an acid drop, the Shiranui, from Finlay. So Finlay tries to go for the Shiranui, but Archer blocks it into a claw hold, his finisher, and he gets the claw hold. He drives Finlay to the ground, but he's not done. He's not just gonna pin him. Oh no, he starts ramming Finlay's head up and down off the mat. I'm just like, oh dear. But I think he's definitely protecting the dude. But it looks very, very impressive, and this is like how he won the United States title from Juice Robinson as well. And from this sequence of head slams into the mat, Archer pins David Finlay for the 1, 2, 3. I don't have a time for this match because it's not listed on the New Japan website right now. But I'm going to say, what do you think? About 10, 12 minutes?
Yeah, I think probably 12, and didn't overstay its welcome. I would have no idea what the time actually was. I never once looked at my watch. I thoroughly enjoyed the match. I thought they both played their roles to perfection in this match, and Archer got to showcase pretty much, he rolled out the entire arsenal, including a moonsault that I'd never seen him do before. And David Finlay didn't have to do an awful lot other than fight. He fought. And as a fan who wants to see their babyface, just give me something to get behind. He was outsized and outmuscled and being bullied almost from the start of the match and being tossed around like a rag doll, but he was always willing to fight. And I thought that just created a really good dynamic between the two of them. They had great chemistry together.
Yeah, I would love to see a rematch between these two, actually. But Juice, we have to mention that Juice Robinson was seconding David Finlay in this match. He didn't get involved, but, he's looking over Finlay. He's protecting him because Lance Archer decides to keep assaulting the young lions who are in there to kind of like check on Finlay, but he doesn't attack Juice Robinson. And then there's this kind of unspoken thing. I don't know if they were saying anything to each other, but the idea is that Juice wants another shot at Archer. He wants to get his United States title back. But, before he leaves, Archer grabs the house mic and just tells him, "You're not worthy, bitch." And then just walks off. And then, I don't know, I kind of feel sorry for Juice Robinson at this point because he just looks so dejected. He didn't seem like the kind of guy that's gonna fire up and make a challenge. He just seems like, I'm not worthy. It's true, I'm not worthy.
They've got to give the babyface a hill to climb, an obstacle to overcome. So I'm not sure exactly what that is. When the match ended, my first thought was that maybe that they're going to build to a three-way between them. Almost the idea that both of them individually couldn't hang with this giant man, but that together the opportunity opens that maybe one of them can get over the finish line. It was hard to sort of get a sense of where they were going by the end of the segment, but that was my first thought, that maybe they're building to a three-way.
Anyways, this was an excellent match. I really enjoyed it. It's definitely up there with the Sho Tanaka and El Phantasmo matches, the highlights of this show. Let's move on to match number 8, LIJ, Los Ingobernables de Japón, Shingo Takagi and Tetsuya Naito taking on the Bullet Club duo of Jay White and Chase Owens. As soon as I saw Chase Owens come out there, I'm like, wonder why he's in this match. Oh, never mind. I know why. Anyways, big response from San Jose for Naito. He is so popular in the West. It's amazing because you would think maybe he doesn't translate into Western audiences, but this guy is so super over.
He's just got a cool factor about him. And sometimes you don't need, and granted, his ring work is also incredible, but he just has a cool factor about him that there's something very nonchalant about the way he carries himself. And, that does translate to the West for whatever given reason. And he really did feel like a star here because Takagi came out and got a nice reaction, but Naito got a really much larger reaction, and it was pretty clear who the star was here.
Definitely. They're building up, of course, to their Intercontinental title match at Wrestle Kingdom on January 4th, and the winner of that will go on to face the winner of the IWGP Heavyweight title match between Ibushi and Okada on the 5th. I'm going to both, Dave. Davis. I'm going to see both shows during that weekend with John Pollock and Wei Ting. They're going to be coming down, and a bunch of other people from the Post Wrestling family and other podcasts. It's going to be a crazy scene in Tokyo between, I'd say, from New Year's until January 6th. It's going to be insane.
Yeah, it sounds like it's going to be, and it seems like this wrestling and MMA summit almost that this whole podcasting and journalist family sort of come together at this is the place they go rather than necessarily WrestleMania weekend. That now Wrestle Kingdom, the 2 or 3 days surrounding that is where all these wonderful voices and minds meet.
Yeah, we're all gonna just eat steak from Ribera Steakhouse and go karaoke and go shop at Totokan for used wrestling goods. It's a big thing. It's just this thing we do every year, it seems now. So we got Naito and Jay White starting off things, but Jay White's doing his usual stalling stuff, and he just he tags out, doesn't interact at all with Naito, just kind of teases him, tags out to Chase Owens, and then Naito's like, oh, okay, I don't really want to. He's just looking past Chase Owens. He just doesn't acknowledge him. He just looks past him to Jay White, and he says, okay, tags in Shingo Takagi, and we start off with Chase Owens having a match with Shingo Takagi. Owens gets the early advantage on Takagi, but eventually Shingo fires back with these chops and shoulder blocks, knocking Chase Owens down. Naito tags in, but looks past, again, he's looking past Owens. He doesn't care about Chase Owens, he's just looking at Jay White. But at some point, there's some Bullet Club interference that leads to Jay White getting the advantage on Naito. Naito hits a Rana off on Owens and tags in Shingo. There's the sequence of punches and elbows to Owens from Shingo, kind of like the Tenru spot I like to call. And then White saves Owens. Shingo double lariats both guys while they're trying to do some double teaming on him. It's a pretty fun match so far. I think like everyone's getting a shine, including Chase Owens, because they do, like, despite what I feel about the guy, I'm not a huge fan, but they see a lot in him as like someone that they want to keep strong, because the stronger he is, the more impressive it is that when people beat him. So he's not necessarily going to get the wins, and he's usually going to take the falls, but before he takes the fall, they're going to make him look good. They're going to give him a bit of a shine. So he's getting a lot of shine in this match against two of the best wrestlers in the world with Naito and Shingo Takagi.
I think it speaks to the respect that he has in the New Japan locker room. And the very limited access that I've had to that through the one show I did here in Australia, I can tell you that the guys in the locker room speak incredibly highly of Chase Owens, and he's someone who they know will go out there, can play whatever role he's asked to play, is a team guy, and basically does whatever is asked of him to the absolute best of his abilities. And like I said, the guys that I spoke to and spent time with on that tour, the New Japan roster guys, they could not have spoken of him any more highly. He's certainly got the respect of the locker room.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I'm obviously not a huge fan of the dude, but I mean, the fact that he's still there, it speaks volumes to what not only what the roster thinks of him, but also definitely what management thinks of him. I do think he's like that utility player that every company needs. That we need to get this guy over. Okay, let's use Chase. He's good for that. So, he has his role. He plays it really, really well. At one point, Owens, continuing to keep the advantage over Shingo, he hits the jewel heist, or as it was, more commonly known when it was first introduced, the Pepsi twist, a move invented by, CM Punk. I like this move. I think he does it really well. It only gets a 2 count on Shingo though. He's not able to pin him with it. Owens tries for the package pile driver, but Shingo powers out of that. And there's a series of strikes between Shingo Takagi and Chase Owens, which Shingo wins, rightfully so, with a lariat onto Chase Owens. Like, here's the thing where, like, as a fan, like, as a talent, I can see his usefulness, but I really wish he would look more like a professional wrestler. He looks like a guy, and this is the problem with Chase Owens. He has a bad haircut. He has a terrible physique for if you compare to other people on that roster. I wish he just looked a little bit better, and I could buy him having a legit strike exchange with someone like Shingo Takagi, who looks like a badass. Like, Chase Owens does not look like a badass. He looks like the second coming of Barry Horowitz to me, and so, like, I don't ever believe that he can ever hold his own with guys, especially when they're doing like punches and elbow strikes with each other.
Sure. That said, I'm not sure that there are many wrestlers who can hold themselves to the intensity of Shingo. It was the one thing that really stood out in this match to me, is just the intensity that he brings to everything that he does, but particularly anything involving striking. There's no wind between any of the shots. Just everything he does is so crisp and aggressive. And I'd never sort of seen this comparison before, but I was getting some flashes of classic Kawada in this to me. He hits hard. He feels legit. It's a different kind of feeling. I don't know. There's just a presence around him and the way he carries himself and the way he strikes that really reminded me of Kawada.
Oh, I don't know if I would see Kawada in him. I don't think he does any of like Kawada's signature moves, but I see what you mean with the presence. He reminds me more of like, like a Kensuke Sasaki because of the lariats and like the power moves that he does. But 2020, I really feel New Japan is going to be very, very interesting. I think, depending on how Wrestle Kingdom goes, you're going to see a lot of clearing of the blocks, so to speak. I think you're going to see like bunch of the guys that have been bubbling underneath get the push, and I think Shingo is definitely going to be one of those people. From here, though, Naito and White both tag in at the same time, and there's a lot of back and forth between these two guys who are going to have their big match at Wrestle Kingdom in the Tokyo Dome. At some point, speaking of spit, Naito spits in Jay White's eye. That's gross. I don't like when he does it either, but it gets heat, so whatever. Naito hits a series of elbows to White's neck. This looked really good. Like, usually, you see an intensity in Naito, but it's just like an escalation of his signature moves. This time, you can just feel this hate he has for Jay White. He's just like elbowing him, dragging him back, elbowing him in the back of his neck. It's like, wow. Obviously, he's setting up for Destino. He wants to hit Destino on Jay White, which targets the neck. But, like Jay White is just enduring it. Like, I'm not a huge fan of the Switchblade. I like Jay White as a wrestler. I'm not a fan of Switchblade. But one thing I really appreciate about the way Jay White presents himself and how he's booked is that he is a tough guy. Like, he's a tough wrestler, and that he can endure a lot of punishment from the top stars in the company.
No doubt. And I think a lot of that goes towards the fact that he spent time there as a young boy. He's earned his way from the bottom up, and that environment certainly provides you with a lot of grit and a lot of determination, and that's exactly what you need to get through these sorts of matches.
From here, White is able to counter and kind of reverse his fortunes. He hits a Saito suplex on Naito. From here, Owens tags in. He teases the package pile driver, this time on Naito, but Naito blocks that. Shingo comes in, and Naito and Shingo proceed to perform several sequences of double team moves on Chase Owens. Shingo hits White with a punch to the face. Like, you're talking about the intensity. So he punches him straight in the face, and then he hits him with this massive clothesline. I'm like, oh, Jay White's going to be feeling that the next day. So, and it goes to that intensity you're saying, So, and finally, in the course of all this action happening, Naito does hit the Destino onto Owens for the 1-2-3 in 15 minutes and 37 seconds, in a really fun tag match. I thought it started off, kind of like it started, typically not too flashy or anything, and started escalating, and then just the point where like Naito and White tag in, and they just go after each other. Naito with the elbow strikes to the back of Jay White's neck, and Jay White hitting him with Saito suplexes, and just all the interaction with Owens and Shingo back into the ring. I just thought really, really fun match. I think it's a nice, builder towards the Wrestle Kingdom match in January.
Definitely gave you enough of a teaser without giving too much away. And it feels like a really important match that they're building to. It obviously is a very important match. Do you have a gut feel on who you think's going to walk away with the title on January 4th?
Yeah, so I think it's going to be Naito beating Jay White for the IC title, and I think Okada is going to retain over Ibushi, and I think they're going to do Naito versus Okada on the 5th, because I think they feel that's the match that's going to sell the 5th out. Like, having 2 Wrestle Kingdom shows at the Tokyo Dome is a very, very ambitious, proposition, I think. And when I first heard that, I was like, they're nuts. I don't know what they're going to do to get people to come to both nights. But this is it. This is their idea. I'm not fully on board with it, but, people's argument against it being Naito and Okada is that it's a one-day build, but it's not really a one-day build. I feel it's like the promise of that match, which is something that New Japan has protected for a long time, is like implied. It's very, very heavily implied that that's going to be the match you're going to see. They're creating the drama of, are we actually going to get that match? Especially for LIJ fans, who are a very passionate group. They want to see that match. And I think if you have, seats still available after the 4th, once people realize that, oh my God, we're finally going to get Naito versus Okada for the IWGP heavyweight title, it's very likely, I think Naito is going to win that title, that all the LIJ fans who might be on the fence are going to just pour into getting tickets and come to the Tokyo Dome on the 5th.
Certainly hope so. I suppose it's on a Sunday night as well, so there's no work or anything like that inhibiting people from deciding on the moment whether they want to go to the following night or not. And much like you, I also believe that we're probably getting an Okada Naito match on the 5th. So
yeah, and I just think, like, you know, this is the first time that January 4th has fallen on a Saturday in a long time. Obviously, like the years before, it was either maybe a weekday or a Sunday or on, another day of the week, which is a little harder to draw because, you know, Saturday is perfect because people generally don't have to work the next day. They can stay out. They can go a bit longer. These shows do tend to go a bit longer. Like for me, I have not gone to every Wrestle Kingdom because I don't want to try to, you know, race back to Tokyo Station from Tsurubashi to catch the bullet train back to where I live. It's not an appealing prospect. I've done before. I don't enjoy, you know, trying to rush out. And there's so many people leaving and getting on the train, going to the train stations around like the Tokyo Dome. It's a really like stressful feeling to go. So sometimes I just say, I'm not going. I don't want to deal with the travel issues afterwards, especially. So this is great. I'm going. It's on a Saturday and I just took the week off. You know, Davis, I'm just going to spend 10 days in Tokyo with a bunch of my friends from Canada and the UK and Australia and you know, wherever else. And they're going to come and we're just going to have a fun time in Tokyo for 10 days, including a lot of wrestling. But I don't have to worry about catching a train back to Numazu from Tokyo. So that's a very appealing prospect.
Yeah, you don't want to have to be dealing with all that when you've got friends visiting. It's nice just to relax and work can just wait a little while.
Let's move on finally to the main event of this show. It features Amazing Red, stalwart of the American independent scene. He's teaming up with the G1 Climax winner Kota Ibushi, and they are taking on the dual championship team of Kazuchika Okada and Will Ospreay. And I gotta say, you know, like all these guys, especially like Ibushi, Okada, and Ospreay, they're all big stars, but Okada is the clear favorite among this crowd. He gets the biggest response, and this crowd absolutely loves Kazuchika Okada.
Very much so. And I think I was a little taken aback by the reaction Ibushi got. I thought he would actually get a much stronger reaction. I thought Will got a very strong reaction, and then the reaction to Okada went above and beyond that. He felt like the biggest deal on this show by a considerable margin.
I think Ibushi has suffered a little in that he's not as high profile as Okada is in the company right now, even though he won the G1. But, you know, there's that whole period between the end of August and up to January that, you know, it's not the most exciting time to be a fan of New Japan. And I do think kind of Okada, like Ibushi, I keep saying Okada, Ibushi suffers a little bit for it. But I think by the time we hit January, like it's going to be a very, very loud reaction and a favorable one definitely for Kota Ibushi at Wrestle Kingdom. The match starts. Let's get, Sorry, can I just say, I find the briefcase thing really goofy. That New Japan to me doesn't necessarily strike me as a company that they've got their own original style for what it is that they do and represent. And I feel like this is almost I don't have to feel like it is a stolen idea from the WWE. I think there's so many, to some extent, it's treating your fan base like they're idiots, that they can't remember that Kota Ibushi won the G1 and that he's going on to main event the Tokyo Dome. We don't really need this visual representation of the fact that he's going to challenge Okada for the championship. I think, we get it. We don't need him carrying around a briefcase, which very much looks exactly like the Money in the Bank briefcase. Well, I'm in complete agreement with you on that. Like when they introduced it, I think it was like, I can't remember what year it was. It was like I think it was the year that that Okada won the G1. And he said, and he had the briefcase to carry his, quote unquote contract. And I thought the exact same thing. It's the WWE Money in the Bank briefcase contract. But, there's some things that New Japan management, booking staff, they have a certain, affectation for WWE tropes. They have the Rumble, the New Japan Rumble at the beginning of each Wrestle Kingdom show these days. They have the briefcase. They do a lot of wacky, they have a lot more heels than other promotions in Japan who do a lot of, American style rule breaking. These are all things that, occur in New Japan Pro Wrestling more than any other companies. And before anyone comes at me and says, well, they had this kind of stuff before. I do know that, yes. You had heels in New Japan. You had, people getting DQ'd and what have you in New Japan. Yes. I'm just saying, but there is a lot more of the tropes of American style wrestling, especially the WB, into New Japan. And it's not by accident, because if you know anything about the bookers, the booker, he loves American style wrestling. But we don't get too much into that. But I do agree with you, Davis. It's a stupid thing. I hate that briefcase as well. I kind of just have kind of just accepted it begrudgingly and just kind of ignore that it exists when I do, even if I do see it. Ibushi and Okada start the match. It's a typical, Okada match to, how he starts most of his matches. It's a lot of counter moves, counters, dodging, leapfrogs, drop downs, what have you. Ospreay tags in and he doesn't want to fight Ibushi. He wants to fight Red. So Red tags in and there's this awesome flurry of strikes, dodges, and counters between these two as well. Red hits a beautiful pop-up, Hurricanrana. Ospreay, takes over and hits a plancha onto Red, who's on the outside. Okada gets in with Red and starts, this is one of my favorite parts. So he gets in the ring with, Amazing Red and Okada starts saying, TNA. He's pointing at Red, TNA, and himself. Us, TNA, and just saying to all the fans, we were in TNA together, which is, I think he's being really sarcastic because I don't think he has that many fond memories outside of the friends he made in TNA of working there.
No, I picked that up also. I think they missed it on the commentary, and I don't know even if the crowd picked it up all that much, but yeah, I thought it was hilarious.
Just a nice, callback to his wasted potential in that company. And, but hey, he made a lot of friends there that he has to this day. So that's a good part of his time in TNA. From here, Red hits the, Deja Vu DDT that you would normally see from someone like Dragon Kid over in Dragon Gate, on Ospreay. Ibushi tags in. He's a house of fire and he's going off on Ospreay. They have excellent chemistry, obviously, as well. Red and, Okada are having great interactions with each other. I think just, one thing I think gets lost in the conversation with Okada is what a great base he is for high flying wrestlers and people smaller than him. Because believe it or not, he was trained. A lot of people don't know this. He was trained by Ultimo Dragon. He was a Toryumon wrestler before he joined the New Japan Dojo.
Yeah, absolutely. And anyone who's trained in that Mexican lucha libre style of wrestling is generally, irrespective of their size, is generally always a very good base. And
to pop the crowd, Amazing Red hits the code red onto Okada. It's great. I was I bid on this for a microsecond, but Ospreay saves Okada from getting pinned by Amazing Red. But that they had to have.
Ospreay. I didn't like that moment. The code red was fantastic, and it was such a snappy way that he executed it as well. But I didn't like the IWGP champion having to be saved from Amazing Red. Obviously I have a tremendous amount of respect for everything that Red's accomplished, but I just thought, especially in the scheme of the match, that he didn't need to be saved from this. I thought a kick out would have been sufficient.
Fair enough. I have no problem with it. I think it's nice when your tag team partner saves you, from the finishing maneuver of someone else. Cause I do think, it doesn't hurt Okada. I don't think it hurts Okada to be saved from Red's finisher. That's put away tons of people who are bigger than him throughout his career. So it's fine for me, but I see where you're coming from. Okada does catch Red off the top rope. He does a jump off the top rope and he catches him with the Tombstone Piledriver. He then kicks Ibushi off the apron really hard. From here, Okada then hits the Rainmaker onto Red for the 1, 2, 3. And yeah, this match was 15 minutes and 35 seconds. Again, it didn't feel like that. It flew by for me. Just a really high-paced tag team match. The main story being between Ibushi and Okada, but definitely also as a complement to that is the story between Ospreay and Amazing Red. Like, I feel you're going to get another singles match out of these two.
It seems like that's very much what Ospreay wants, and it seems like that's absolutely destined to happen. So, yeah, even during the match, I think when they first got together, you could see how much of a big deal Will was making, the fact that the two of them were in the ring together again. So I think that's definitely something they're going to revisit.
Yeah, and from there, Ospreay and, well, mainly Okada does the post-match speech. He's asking San Jose if they liked what they saw, if they had fun, blah, blah, blah. He proceeds to bury the Intercontinental title, saying, I don't want that, but next time I'm here, I'm going to have the IWGP Heavyweight title, but not the IC title, because I don't want that. But I think it's weird. I think he should be saying, I want both those belts to prove I'm the best in the company. And kind of Kevin Kelly and Tiger Tori and Rock Romero do kind of like, cover that up by saying, like, they don't believe when he says that. They believe that he does actually want the IC title just because of that point. He wants to prove that he's the best wrestler in New Japan Pro Wrestling. And overall, I thought this was a really fun show. I thought it flew by so fast. It's such a refreshing change from a lot of the kind of tour shows that we see on New Japan World that emanate like from Road to Power Struggle, Road to King of Pro Wrestling, what have you. These matches were all like really quick. They were high paced and the crowd was hot for all of them. So I really enjoyed watching the show, and I'm glad I got to do this as opposed to say something like Power Struggle. And I'm glad we got a chance to talk on this as well, Davis.
Yeah, definitely. I always appreciate the opportunity to come on and have a chat with you, WH. And I agree with you about the show as well, that a good wrestling show to me is always going to be a team effort. And it seemed like on this night, no one individual was more important than the show, that everyone played their role, that within a match, each person played their role. And then in the larger scheme, each match played its role on the show. There was, you got a lot of different styles of match. There was comedy early on. You had the Young Lions early on. You had a great brawl between Finlay and between David Finlay and Lance Archer. The Cruiserweight match was fantastic. Just a nice spread of different styles of match that added up to a really entertaining show.
Yeah, definitely. And if you haven't watched it before listening to this, I don't know why you would do that, but yeah, definitely go out and watch that show. It's on New Japan World, obviously, and I highly recommend it. Davis, before we go off the air, let's talk a bit about you're coming off a big match that Explosive Pro Wrestling had yesterday, Australia time. It was the 18th anniversary show, and tell us a bit about that show and about your particular match during that show.
Sure. So yes, as you mentioned, WH, our 18th anniversary. So bit of a celebration from us, and I suppose that my match was kind of trying to highlight the old and the new. So my tag partner Richter, he's one of the original members of Explosive Pro Wrestling, like myself. We were getting together. We're old tag team partners, and we were facing the Untouchables, Damian Slater and Marcus Pitt. Now, in reality, in the scheme of things, these guys aren't really even considered a generation behind us. They were not too far behind us in terms of starting their time, but there's definitely in Perth, there's a perception difference between us because Richter and myself were there at the very beginning. So Slater and Marcus Pitt are obviously two very accomplished wrestlers, and I thought we had a really fun match that highlighted Richter was coming back from double knee surgery, so he's had about 3 years off now, and it was his first chance to get in there, and you really couldn't ask for two better opponents than Damian Slater and Marcus Pitt. So we had a really fun match. Didn't go over at the end, unfortunately. Ended up on the losing end of that, which was fairly thematic for the evening. A lot of the good guys lost their matches. The show was highlighted by Mikey Nichols and the Don Michael Borleone fighting for the EPW Championship, which Mikey won before he heads off to the World Tag League next week.
Yeah, sounds great, and hopefully I don't know if that's up on, would that be on Pivot Share? I guess on EPW's.
We use Vimeo.com / Explosive Pro Wrestling. So that'll be up in the coming days. Not up just yet. We're still working on trying to get some sort of streaming and live editing process going on. But at the moment, my main man Giles O'Brien, former EPW referee, he'll get that knocked up in the next few days and then get that up on the Vimeo service.
Yeah, and keep your eyes out on Twitter for announcements for when that show goes up on VOD. And before we end this review, let's talk a bit about the Australian wrestling scene in general. In particular, there's all this talk recently about, the WWE wanting to do their satellite, promotion and NXT Japan, so to speak. But, they kind of not been successful in that. Like Noah turned them down, Stardom turned them down. And so the talk of that has quieted down, but it's kind of the talk, maybe more like whispers, have come out of your neck of the woods in Australia and maybe to some extent New Zealand as well, that maybe WWE is going to start up an NXT division in Oceania, in Australia, probably. What do you think about that?
I think people think that I'm far more informed than I am. This is all just gut feel for me. I'm not someone who tends to get involved on the business side of wrestling too much, and although I know some of the people who would probably be involved in these situations if they were to go ahead, it's not really it's something that I care to get involved in. My own personal interests sort of just revolve around explosive pro wrestling and trying to get around the country and influence people through my training and the advice that I can hopefully give to people. Obviously a lot of people have been down on the impact that WWE UK has had on the European wrestling scene. And there are definitely two sides to that argument too. I know people within that system who have said, that it's nice to not have to go through the grind that they did when they were having to settle their own dates and make their own bookings. It's nice to not go through that grind but still be able to make a decent living. Which again, I'm never going to not feel good for wrestlers who feel that they're getting their the money that they get from putting their bodies and their lives on the line. But that the general consensus, at least from fans, is that it's not been great for the European wrestling product in general. And while Japan has been able to withstand overtures from the WWE, I'm not sure that Australian wrestling has its own strength of character and identity that it would necessarily be able to withstand that. But it has been. Japan has its own wrestling culture. Mexico has its own wrestling culture, and I feel like the Australian wrestling culture is probably too closely tied to American wrestling culture. And that lack of identity might be the sort of thing that allows the WWE to come in here if important players don't feel that that they stand for something greater than just their own promotion, that it might be very easy to sort of, and I use this phrase very loosely, to sell yourselves out to the WWE. I don't say that in a disrespectful way, because at the end of the day, everyone has their own choices to make. But for me, the health of the Australian wrestling scene is what's most important to me. I've never been involved in wrestling for money. It's been something that I do as a part-time gig because I love professional wrestling. I'm heavily involved in training here. I travel fairly regularly around the country for seminars, and the growth and development of wrestling in this country is what's most important to me. So, I'm very wary of overtures being made by big players, and I'm very concerned about the effect that a proxy war on Australian soil, on New Zealand soil, between WWE and New Japan might have on the local product.
All right. Well put. I echo a lot of your sentiments. Obviously, I'm not as deeply ingrained in the scene as you are. I live in Japan, but like you say, you're not too involved in the in the business end of things in Australian wrestling. But it's nice to have kind of the comments from someone whose ears are to the ground, so to speak. And with that, I want to thank you, Davis, for taking time out of your busy schedule a day after a grueling match with the Untouchables to come on to this show, watch the show, and then do this review show with me and talk a little bit about Australian wrestling as well. I know a lot of the listeners who emanate from Australia, Chris Thunder and Chris Shyatt, are all gonna really enjoy this show listening to you. I know you're a very popular guest with those listeners, and rightfully so. Let's get some plugs in before we finish the show.
I am EPW Davis Storm across all the major social platforms, Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. If you want to interact with me, Twitter's probably the best place to do that. I'm pretty active there. And like I said, my home promotion is Explosive Pro Wrestling here in Perth. If you're in the area, come and check us out. If you're looking for a place to train, I can tell you that there's no better place to train in the country than Explosive Pro Wrestling.
Well, I hope to make a trip out to Australia. Again, I've done it once, but I didn't get out to Perth. Next time, I'm going to try to come out to Perth. I'm going to hopefully coincide that with an EPW show, and then maybe we can hang out, have some food, and have some beers in person. That would be lovely. You were also a guest on Cruel Summer, and you're going to be an upcoming guest on Thunderstruck. We have not scheduled that as of this recording, but it's coming soon, and we'll drop the news of when your episode of Thunderstruck. We're not going to say who the opponent for Liger is and what match that is, but it's going to be a good one. I'm excited to talk to you on that show. And, for David Storm, who I want to thank for coming onto the show, and to all the listeners who, listened to us for the last 2 hours or so. Thank you very much. And I will see you on the next episode of Thunderstruck, or maybe on a future review of a live show of New Japan's. We'll see. Goodbye.